Well, hello and welcome to that favorite hour. And indeed, today we are going to school. We all become tax experts within an hour. You will know at least tax 101. We are looking at the 3% tax that's been levied. Changed from 17.5 to 3%. Now, how does it work? Now, you see, VAT is a consumption tax. So whoever consumes a product or a service, you pay for that. And you raise generally about 25% of any country's revenue will come from people consuming goods and services within the country. And so when the NPP was coming in, they thought, listen, this 17.5 thing is a bit too much. No, why don't we all pay 3%? And everybody was deciding, thinking, well, 3% is fine. However, you see, with the issue with VAT, it's only the guy who consumes the product or the services that will pay the tax. So, i.e., if I were making orange juice and I went to buy oranges and I paid my VAT for the oranges, and I went to buy the boxes, paid VAT for the boxes. When I sell it to you, the viewer, I go to government and tell government that, listen, I did not drink the oranges, I did not use the boxes, it's the viewer that used it. So give me back all the VAT I paid in the process. So the government will give me back my VAT refund. I'm sure you had VAT refund. But for the guy who drank the orange, your VAT is gone. But this time it's 3%. So if I buy the box, I pay 3%. If I buy the oranges, I pay 3%. And then if you come to buy to consume it, you also pay 3%. However, those in the middle chain think that this may add up to production, since there's no, you cannot go and ask for a refund anymore. But government is saying that no, it should make business cheaper, it should make business freer. So I have government in here and I have consumers in here to find out what's happening, because you can tell that the heat and the agitation, it's quite hot. Now, this is my understanding of VAT. Throughout the process, more understanding will come up. My name is Nana Nsakwa IV, Chief of the Little Republic of Akwamu Edumasa. And when I come back, we are talking VAT. Don't touch that down. Well, the maze of VAT, or the maze of the tax world. The tax world is such a maze, and it's one of those things that you will never get away from. They say the two things that are setting in the world is death and taxes. You can't get away from it. And here we are today. Now with me in the studio, sat right next to me is Samson Awingobet, who is Executive Secretary for Importers and Exporters Association. And then I also have in the studio Kweku Kwating, who's Honorable Member of Parliament for Obuasi West, and also Deputy Minister of Finance. So all this VAT thing is coming from his backyard. And so I want to start with Kweku so that, how's my VAT explanation though?
Which one was that?
It was all over the place. Well, this once upon a time, VAT is a consumption tax.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you consume a product, you pay it.
Sure.
And we used to pay 17.5%. Now, in the wisdom of the government, no more 17.5. Let's all pay 3%. Am I still right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And there will be no refund. Whether you consumed it or not, there will be no refund.
Well, okay, let me just take it.
So let me explain to us what's happening.
Traditionally, what we have had is the standard VAT. Standard VAT is that if you are a trader, you go to buy from, say, a manufacturer, or you import, and then you pay 17.5% of the value of the item imported or bought from a manufacturer. So you pay it, and that is money that has left your pocket. And then when you have added your profit and your overheads and everything, and you are selling, you also put 17.5% of the higher price, because the selling price is always higher than the cost price.
Mm-hmm.
So you also put 17.5% on the selling price, and therefore that will be bigger. Then government says the 17.5% you paid initially, subtract it from this and pay the rest to me. That's all the standard VAT means. So it's output
so
VAT.
Once you haven't consumed it, you get your VAT back.
No, you the consumer, in fact, you don't get any refund.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But the trader,
traditionally, if you haven't consumed a good or service, but paid VAT, you have the right to claim it back.
Sure. That's what effectively it means. Mm-hmm. So when you add the value, the person that consumes it now pays 17.5% to you. And you don't bring all that 17.5 to government. You take off the initial 17.5 you paid when you were also buying it. Mm-hmm. You subtract it from it, and the difference is what you pay to government. That's standard VAT. So you ask, what was the problem with it? There were two issues. First, for those small retailers, let's just for simplicity of presentation, the small retailers, those who were selling things to people, but they were not doing this in very large quantities. The computation was difficult. Because they now have to calculate all the 17.5% that they have paid. And then when they sell their goods, they now have to calculate 17.5 on all the goods they have sold. And then it was very complicated for the small retailers. So that was one part of the problem. The second part was that the big organized retailers, the Quales, the Melcoms, the Games, they did not have this problem with computation. But there was another issue with them. Because they were required to subtract 17.5% input VAT from the output VAT. So it means all the things that a big retailer sells, somebody has a response. If you are a tax authority, you want to ensure that the right thing is being done, you need to be able to compute all the 17.5 on each item they have sold. And then we also have to be able to verify all the 17.5% they paid out. So they consume electricity, they buy from abroad, they import, they do all kinds of things just to feed into their businesses. Somehow, somebody has to have the capacity to calculate the input VAT. And then you can say that you are subtracting this input VAT from their output. And the difference is what they pay to government. Mm-hmm. Now, because traditionally the state has lacked the capacity to do this, I mean, you have big retailers who for a whole year will tell you that they have no VAT to pay to you. So essentially what they are saying is that when they calculate all their input VAT and they also calculate all their output VAT, it offsets. So you government, you have nothing. And then in fact, in some cases, they even say that when we compute our input VAT, it turns out to be higher. So you ask, how could you be doing business and it looks like you keep buying, but you are never selling those things. So you are never collecting the output VAT. But you seem to be, you keep buying and just what? Stocking, and you never sell out, which is why when you subtract, government now always has to even find you. So you are in credit. Now this was because they were manipulating, not all of them, but some of them were manipulating the input-output VAT system. In fact, it is just not wise to mention names here, but there is a big retailer in this country. One of the workers there came to the tax authorities 2 years ago and said, when we sold, they suppressed some of the output VAT. And then they showed the GRA how that was done. They invaded their offices, and indeed they found out, and about 33 million Ghana cedis had to be paid by that retailer. Now, so when we were bringing this flat rate, what we said was, okay, we would apply it to the small retailers to deal with the computational issues, but we will also apply it to the big retailers, those in the distributive trade and the wholesalers. We apply it to them so that now nobody is really concerned about your input VAT. All we are saying is that instead of paying input VAT to output, charging output and subtracting, the input VAT that you paid, it is now your cost. So that is something you have to deal with. But the output 17.5, please don't take it any longer. Just instead of putting 17.5%, put just 3%. So the natural response from a consumer will be then prices should drop by 14.5%. Because you were putting 17.5, government says now put 3. But our traders, and I would agree with them if they said, no, we cannot drop the prices because we need that 14.5% on the output, on the selling price, to offset the 17.5% that in the past we would have subtracted from the output VAT. So all they essentially we're saying is that keep the prices where they are so that this time round, the big margin, the 14.5%, which we consider would offset your input VAT you paid initially, use it to do so and just give us 3%. So now with the 3%, all that we have to do is to establish how much you have sold, and then we take 3%. So we now do not have the burden of going to read all your input VAT, which you have been calculating and telling us that in the end you are in credit all the time. You are a company doing business for profit, and constantly you are in credit, meaning you keep buying and getting input VAT, but you are never selling enough, and you are still in business. So we said, no, we are not interested. So this is the arrangement. Now, the question that has come from some of our retailers, and I have to make the point now that it is not every trader that is critical of this policy. In fact, if you listen to Ghana Union of Traders Association, they say that they are comfortable with this 3%. I speak like this and I speak respectfully. Look, there are people who legitimately have not really taken the trouble to do the computations and the simulations, and they are complaining that this would add to their prices and all that. So for those ones, we will continue with the engagement. But there is also some who have very good reasons never to accept this flat rate. And in fact, I conclude my comment on this point that, you know, when someone is asleep and you're waking the person up, it's very easy. You shake the person 1, 2, 3, 4, the person wakes up.
No.
If somebody is pretending to be asleep,
very difficult to wake them up.
You can spend 2 hours shaking, they will never wake up. We have had consultation upon consultation. You do the simulation to them, and you would think that now people will be disarmed and that they will just come along. And they just, the only thing they now say is that, well, as far as we are telling you that this thing will lead to increase in prices. And that is why government would continue as we implement this policy. We've started with it. On the 1st of July, when this thing took off, I went to some big retailers in Achimota Retail Center. You see that they are now charging the 3%. I have not seen any increase in prices yet. I have spoken with many large retailers who are saying that they have no intention of increasing their prices. I think for those who are trying to do everything to bring political pressure to bear on government, that is how we have done business in this country. If you can mobilize political pressure, then politicians no more are firm in what they believe, and then they give way, and then the country goes down, 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 and down. I am pleased that there are some And I don't know whether I have their permission to mention, but they have said that they would never increase prices. And my concluding advice to the consuming public is that if you go to shop A and they say that as a result of some 3% flat rate, they are increasing their prices, please try the next shop. Let the market force those who are intent on increasing prices because they just do not want this. In fact, in some of the engagements, we have asked them, if you think 3% is too high, what percentage will you consider appropriate? And they just don't want the flat rate. They just want to do the input-output. And my advice to the public is that if you go where prices have been increased, please go somewhere else. If those who are intent on increasing prices realize that consumers are now walking away from them to those who are not increasing their prices, I am sure people will fall in line.
Samson.
Nana?
No input, output, 3% flat.
Yes.
For those in the distributive trade, for those in manufacturing and service provision, they still do standard 17.6. Yes.
Oh, really? Okay. Anyway,
yes.
Let me first of all say a very big good evening to your listeners.
Manufacturing and distribution.
Manufacturing and service providers.
Manufacturing, service providers.
Yeah, sure.
So, but manufacturing is still.
It's still 17.5 input output. Yes.
But for retailers, it's 3% flat.
For all those in the distributive trade, importers, wholesalers, retailers, all of them, they are doing 3%. Yes, that's what the law says.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Honorable Kokukwate is a brother, a senior comrade, brother that I know him very well, and I don't know why, because he took that seat, his language has changed. But however, we will still work with government. He knows me very well. He knows that I speak my mind. And I am a Ghanaian, yeah, like he's a mother, father Ghanaian. I'm even traveling far away from North. He's from Oboshi, yeah, very close. So when the two of us are leaving to our hometown, he will get there before I get there. The point here is that
you pay more 3%
yes,
to get
exactly. I'll pay double. The point here is that Honorable Kokukwate just made a reference, and I'm very happy. And he can be honest to put it before the public watching us that I have raised this issue before him in his meetings, that we are very much aware that there was accounting system problems for the smaller traders with the 70.5% that the previous government took them to. I, in particular, joined the Gutta to do a demonstration and close shops because we asked John Mahama government, His Excellency, the former president, to reverse them back from the trade.
Because we only have like 30 minutes.
Why?
So, well, the show is an hour. So
okay.
We need to like...
No, but I have to give you because he spoke a lot.
No, I'm not taking your time. What I'm saying is that like narrow it to the point so that we can...
Yes, I'm giving this now because consumers and our viewers need to get the history behind it. We join them to say that, look, give them back the 3% because their capital is so small. Even at that 3% that his previous government and the Kufuor's government brought it, there was a reason that they brought that 3% to the Gutta people, to help them in terms of accounting purpose, to also help them also grow their businesses. With those, so 3% flat rate, if they had given it to the traders, in which they even promised, and he knows that when they were drafting the manifesto, they came to Gutta. I was in the meeting. When it was launched and 2 weeks to election, the president, now the candidate by then, now the president of the Republic of Ghana, came to Gutta and re-emphasized. Now, both the manifesto and the law that was passed, it stated clearly. On the manifesto, it stated that reducing VAT for micro and smaller enterprises from the current 17.5% to the 3% flat rate VAT introduced by the Kufuor-led MPP government. This is the manifesto, page 417. The budget statement, which his boss presented in Parliament, improving the business's environment, page 136, it stated clear, replace the 17.5% VAT on National Health Insurance rate with the flat rate of 3% for traders. It was never said anywhere that, and we know which of the traders they are talking about. Get like
wholesalers are not
traders. Hold on, Master. When you were talking, I didn't come in. I am very much aware where this 3% was supposed to go. In fact, him as a deputy honorable minister, I'm not lying to him. In the first day we met him on 30th May, When he sat down with it, he said, no, it will not affect import, it will not affect manufacture. He said it. But when we went and came back, he said, no. He never said that it will affect.
It still won't affect manufacturers.
Now, as we speak
I've
now,
just said it.
as we speak now, I'm saying that you said it will not affect manufacturers and importers, and we're happy. We clap down and say, oh, if that's the case, oh, that's not the purpose, that's not the intent of government to introduce such a policy, even if it will ridicule the government. So they will do something about it. So that was how he called off the implementation on the 1st June, so that we can engage. We continue engaging. Then we thought, okay, if that is the case, they'll reduce the input tax at VAT at port. I'm sure he's very much aware of what you mean. So that they won't bring any confusion, because he just made mention. The 14.5% that he told you is a cost. Now it's a cost to who? To the cost. He said, my people should what do you call it? Should absorb it. And we say no. The point here is that I know new MPP government under President Akufo-Addo is not to cause any fear and panic in the business community. They are business friendly. They are prepared to listen to business community and do exactly what. That was why that necessitated the reduction of several taxes, and we applaud. Reducing 1% special levy, that was the major policy that cut across import in this country, in the port. 1% special levy, where Honorable Akufo-Addo say it was insignificant, and I described it, if you remember, I described that it's a half loaf of bread is better than none, because a government that came less than 1 month, because Nana took over 7th January, and by 2nd February, his Minister of Finance could come out with a very robust budget. We applaud them. All those things they said. If you give the biggest one was 1% chunk, then the following year, we are now introducing 3%. Now, when he said that they will not suffer, they will suffer, everybody will suffer. Why am I saying that? A sugar is a commodity, but he just made mention that manufacturer will not be affected, and I want him to answer me. Sugar is a commodity that importers bring it. They pay a duty at the port with 17.5%. When they come, the previous one, the one that just died, I think, so that's it, Friday night, and give birth to the new one on Saturday, 1st July. 17.5% at the port when they are selling it. Of course, when the person clear at the port, there's transportation. He knows there's labor that discharges sugar. He's paying utility to store, even a storage facility, they are paying. They will add all those costs plus a little margin. And he knows that nobody will be in business to make 0%. Then they now sell it to who? Let's take it Guinness Ghana or Coca-Cola or Accra Brewery. They buy the sugar, or Nestle Ghana to produce milk or whatever. Now, if Guinness Ghana is buying sugar to produce Guinness or Malta Guinness, the importer invoice to them at 17.5% VAT. Now he's saying that the sugar importer who pay a duty at the port, if he's going to sell it to Guinness Ghana, he should no longer invoice the 17.5%, but 3% flat rate to him. Is that not true?
Yes, yes.
So the manufacturer, where did he get his input 17.5%? And when you go and produce finish, he will give to his distributor at 17.5% and have his output. Tell me.
Can I answer you now?
You can come in.
He's right. In the old VAT, standard VAT, when the sugar seller, importer sold it to the manufacturer would pay 17.5, and that becomes input VAT.
Exactly.
So when they also sold to wholesalers, then they would charge 17.5 and they will offset. The argument is making, and on the face of it, it sounds very good, is that
it's a fact, not that it sounds very good.
If you can let me answer your own question. On the face of it, it sounds good, because now that the importer is going to sell it to the manufacturer at 3% flat rate, which 3% the manufacturer cannot recover. He thinks that the policy hurts the manufacturer. What they fail to recognize
No,
is
it hurt the importer before it gets there, because the importer is losing 14.5%. It's a cost, which he admitted a few minutes ago, which he admitted that is the cost.
Please.
Okay.
Please. As for the importer, in the past, they would have imported at 17.5%. When they were selling to the manufacturer, they put 17.5%.
That is his output
I'm
tax.
coming, please. This time round, when they have paid the 17.5%, they are selling to the manufacturer. They are not going to put 17.5%. They are putting just 3%. The question you want to ask...
And bring it to government.
Oh, please.
It's not please. It's the fact. I want you to make it
Let
clear.
either you don't understand it. Let's explain. People want to get me. They are no more slapping 17.5% as they sell to the manufacturer. They are slapping 3%. So you would have expected that they would then drop the price because 17.5 and 3%, they are not the same. So you would expect that they should drop the price. You know why they will not drop the price? They will not drop the price because now, because the 17.5% they paid is no more input VAT for which they will get a refund.
Become a cost.
Oh, please.
Exactly, Honorable. It's a cost. You made it. I wrote it down.
How are we going to go on? You've asked the question.
You are Ghanaian. You should remember that.
Don't get angry because I'm a man. So if you get angry, I'm a man.
I'm not saying
so. Don't get angry.
I'm not getting.
Yes.
I'm not getting.
I'm a man.
So,
So please.
but you want the question answered.
I want, but
Don't
get angry
answer,
because I'm debating.
I'm
So
trying to
get
get
angry.
it.
I'm a man sitting here.
As soon as we get to the factory, you interject. So how do we even know what's going to happen from the factory?
What I'm saying is that you are a Ghanaian.
Yeah.
And when I say you're a Ghanaian, you understand what I mean. That in the end, the public purse is important. We have to develop this country. So if there's a policy like this, don't look on the policy and the way I'm seeing your strategy this evening is to derail it at all costs.
Oh,
Just
no,
listen.
no.
Otherwise,
we are supporting it.
what I'm saying is that in the past, at import, it was 17.5%. When they sold to the manufacturer, that importer sold the sugar to the manufacturer. They put 17.5% on it. And then they subtracted their initial 17.5% from this one, and they accounted to government. Now, government is saying that don't slap 17.5%. So ordinarily, you would have expected the price of sugar sold to manufacturers to drop by 14.5%.
Yes.
But it wouldn't. Why will it not? Because the 14.5% now goes back to the importer to offset the 17.5% that previously he would have subtracted from his input VAT. And that is why we say that the 17.5 input output is equivalent to the 3% on if you like your turnover, your sale. So that is the thing with the import, and I think it is revenue neutral. Now let's go to the manufacturer quickly. That's the point he raised. For the manufacturer, legitimate. If in the past I paid 17.5%, it was input cost. When the manufacturer finished manufacturing and sold to a wholesaler, that manufacturer would subtract this 17.5. Now we are saying that you cannot subtract the 3%. So he's raising a point, and I say again, on the face of it, it sounds very reasonable. But let's look a little deeper. When you are calculating your income tax, in the past, that 17.5% which you paid, you were not allowed to treat it as expenditure. You will not subtract it from your revenue before computing your taxes.
Yes. Because
it was input VAT, it was not expenditure. Now, because the 3% is no more input VAT, it is now direct cost. So when you are doing your income tax computations, you subtract it from your revenue. So you see that effectively the manufacturers would be on the one side of their mouth, would be worrying that I no more have the option to subtract this input VAT 3%. In the past it was 17, now it's 3%. I'm not allowed to subtract that from anywhere. But when he comes to compute his income tax, then he will start laughing that, oh, but this time around I have a lot of costs to subtract. When you take all this together, you will see that government even loses out slightly. And let me explain why it's very easy to see that. When VAT was, I'm concluding on this, when VAT...
No, briefly before you continue. So this time, manufacturers bought sugar plus 3%.
With 3%
with 3%
sure.
on it. Whatever he makes, he has to add 17.5.
Sure.
So he's now hovering around somewhere 20.
Yeah.
But he can claim his 17.5 back as VAT. If he sells the product on.
No. His input is 3%. So how do you do output 17.5? No, that's why I'm at a loss.
I'm coming. His input, some of his inputs, the services that
so his input is now 20.5%.
No. The services that are rendered to that manufacturer would be 17.5% VAT. If they have lawyers, if they have accountants, and they offer services, they're 17.5. So the manufacturer will still have some input cost to subtract from the 17.5, except that for those items in previously, they bought at 17.5%, but which they are now buying at 3%. For just that portion of their input, manufacturing input, they will not be able to reclaim, subtract that from the output VAT. But what I'm saying is that when they come to compute their income taxes,
well,
look, what I would conclude on this is this, that as I have already said it, and this man is my friend, I speak with all respect, when people are pretending to be asleep, it's difficult to wake them up.
I'm taking a quick break.
No, he made the statement.
And break is due, so let me take a quick break, and then when we come back, we continue. Stay tuned. We're coming back. We're still on the VAT education. Well, the show, hasn't stopped. It's just continuing, and we are back here. Well, 3% VAT rate, which is flat, and it's not refundable. And so let me bring something in here.
Yes.
So one of the issues is that if a product goes through many stages before it reaches a consumer, all the people in the chain are not able to get any refund, and therefore they leave their 3% on plus their profit. It goes next door. I leave my 3% on plus my profit until it gets to the consumer, who probably also pays the 3%, and nobody gets that refund.
What is going to happen is that, and I want my brother to take it in good faith, is that a raw material that a manufacturer doesn't import by himself, by buying from an importer, who will now lose the 17.5% at the port that he paid, and he used to get output tax of 17.5%. Now with this law that says that you should only invoice 3% to the, let's take his invoice to a manufacturer at 3%. That 3% becomes the manufacturer input tax or whatever they are describing it. Now his 14.5%, they have to add it onto the raw material cost because he's not ready to absorb it. That is why the price will come. That's why price of goods will now come from the manufacturer.
What do you mean 14?
I said when he did the differences, it's 14.5% that remain. If he used to pay in a duty at the port plus 17.5% input tax, he sell it at 17.5%. That is claimable. That's when he said that it's even sometimes higher more than even what is being paid at the port. You hear this thing? Now the difference, because now government now say don't no longer charge 3% and 17.5%, but charge 3% and bring it to me. But the difference, which is the cost, which we are asking government, where will it go? And government hasn't given a correct. Yes. Maybe we are not getting this scenario.
No, I'm not getting it.
No, let me. When I finish, there's anything will come in. Then the manufacturer, who will also buy from the raw material and produce, he will also have to add his 3% after his cost of production, profit, wages and other things. Probably he may also add his margins on it. Of course, he will add margins. Then add 3% and charge and bring it to government. Then when the manufacturer produce finished, because he's given it to who? A distributor. Let's take it. Guinea, they have distributors. The distributor too will take it, go and add his transportation costs and everything, add his margin, add 3%, and charge to the let's take a wholesaler or a retailer who's come to buy from him. Now the retailer will also take it there and also add his cost of transportation and everything and charge 3% and bring it to government. So you can imagine, you can see how the supply chain is. And it is clear that since Saturday, the implementation that government asked, I had calls from Unilever, when they are changing the system to 3%, their price is going high and they are so much worried.
It's not.
When the Nestle Ghana is part, these are the bigger manufacturers. If they were not affected, we would not have Guinness Ghana, Coca-Cola, Accra Brewery, all these companies, Unilever, Nestle, all these companies are also worried. And I'm quite sure that you had calls from AGI because their members are on them that this 3% is a killer to them because at the end of the day, they are also thinking of the final consumer. As he said, he knows very well that if the higher or the longer the supply chain is, the longer the 3% will be charging. So for that matter, now you are not telling Guinness Ghana, go and import your own sugar, pay a duty of 17.5% at the port, take it to your manufacturers, your factory, produce. So the one who used to import the sugar should be out of business. That is what the government is trying to tell us. exactly what the government is not trying to.
They will not be out of
Exactly, because you are
Let
trying
me
to tell
explain
people.
to you why they will not.
And indeed, the one who used a retailer who used to go and pick goods at wholesales, and the wholesaler pick the goods at the distributor. Government is not saying that the retailer, you can just go to the wholesale distributor and buy it there. Meanwhile, some of the company, their policy is not like that. You can't jump the gun. You must go to their legalized, registered distributor to buy.
Look,
that is how the final
let me
consumer
come
will
in.
suffer.
I'm
And he's
itching
very
to-
much aware.
I'm itching to
And
respond.
So I agree that
Look,
yes,
these are-
Gutta will be happy, of course.
Why would-
Now I'm happy that government has reversed it back to them. But the way in money which they are not implementing, look, at the vice president meeting, when we explained this scenario, he was shocked. He said, "No, this is not how government."
Please
intends to."
don't misquote
Today,
the vice
I am not
president here.
I am telling you, you weren't there. We were there. And today, we are just coming from the finance committee chairman office, and he also looked and said, "No, is that how this thing?" Because when they came, they took 1 weekend.
Which
with the
finance
GRA.
committee chairman?
The chairman in parliament, of course. We are just coming.
You are quoting him
I
properly.
said the finance committee chairman in parliament, you know me, I will not lie. We just came from him. And they are going to write to your office tomorrow, write to GRA and bring all of us together to listen to the both sides. Because,
that's
they don't,
okay.
because they don't understand.
That's
They said,
okay.
no. He said, look, this government is to make business. And look, if workers are not taking, the manufacturers will lay off workers. And that is not what your
This
government wants.
scaremongering.
Okay,
I'm
let's-
telling you,
this
this is a fact.
this
I'm
is
telling you.
politically
It's
motivated
not political,
scaremongering.
because,
Before
you
let
know
me
me,
respond, otherwise
Toku, when you
run
did your
out of
budget,
time.
it was very robust. I recommended it.
You didn't.
I'm telling you,
I don't remember. I don't remember.
You wouldn't.
Okay.
You can go to read.
Okay.
You have your iPad. You
with
go to
regards, with regards to the chain, how is it going to work?
First, the chain. You see, 3% or standard VAT, if manufacturer manufactures and they sell to one middleman, and there are several middlemen between the final consumer and the manufacturer, the price goes up. That has nothing to do with be it 3% or 17.5% input output. Because you see, if there are several middlemen, each will have to put their margin on it. And that margin in VAT computation is considered value addition.
And charge 3%.
So they will charge 17.5 input output at each level. That will begin to add to the price because each of them would constitute value addition. So whilst I agree with him that where you have a lot of middlemen between the manufacturer and the consumer, the price would go up. But I'm saying to him that that is the case whether or not it is 3%. And look, everybody knows that.
No, but in this case, automatically it's gone up by 3%.
But in the past, the 17.5 input output is equivalent to the 3%. That's the calculation.
But that would have been at the end.
No,
The end consumer.
I'm coming.
Because
Look,
in the previous government, the
for-
reason why Gutta didn't agree is
Please, let me finish with this chain point. You see, for each middleman, trader in the middle, they would buy and they will sell. They will buy and they will sell. For each one, they will charge 17.5% at input. They will pay 17.5% at input, charge it at output, and subtract and pay to government. So the more you have those middlemen between the manufacturer and the consumer, the more you have this input output.
and that's the system in Ghana.
The more you have this input output along the chain, it adds to the cost. However, if somebody, even you had 17.5%, if you have several middlemen between you and between manufacturer and consumer, and you had somebody who had fewer middlemen, 3% or no 3%, you, the person with more middlemen in the center, you pay more. This is a logic, I'm sure many.
It's not true.
That's the first point.
Look,
if it's not true,
look,
people.
because there are some big wholesalers who are not even foreigners. Let me even put it that way. Big, and he knows when you go to Okase that way. They have what they can do: input and output. And they
Okay,
can. And the GRA said they were having difficulty in collecting these taxes for the government.
There's no time. I've told you that one of the policy objectives is to curb this tendency for especially the big retailers who import to come to government and always to say we are in credit, as though they are buying the goods and they are never selling. that nobody has been able to explain to me what can produce.
Of course,
that.
sometimes the market may not be good. Let's take it when they implement government, the previous
Over
government
a year?
started implementing.
Over a year?
Oh, it might not be over a year, but
Don't
at
force
some
me.
case, you know,
There are figures.
There are cases.
Okay,
there are cases. I agree,
that is
yes.
for this input-output. As for the points he made about the finance committee and GUTA and all, I am happy that in the end, there are some retailers and some traders who are saying, we don't think this 3%.
Well, I've not seen them yet, but I know GUTA is happy. For me, I've spoken to GUTA president.
Yes,
they're
GUTA
happy.
and
It
GUTA.
was a promise, and I was sitting in that meeting.
I'm saying
so
that
I know.
GUTA...
For their members, yes.
There are many members of GUTA whose nature of business is just as big as your...
I agree.
And
they were on 70%.
No, and those
and
people...
the previous one was optional. Some of them opted to the 70.5%.
Yes, and now they are all going to have to do 3%, but they are happy.
Well, I have not come across.
And today I listened to the GUTA president. Look, if something is bad, it would affect everybody. How come that there are members of GUTA who import and then they sell? The same way there are members in your association, the big retailers, Melcom, Kuala, and the big ones. They also import and they sell. GUTA is saying, as for me, the 3%, I can live with it.
I'm saying the request that, look, it was
I'm coming.
that was there,
and then you
robbed them,
please, the logic.
So
the people listening to us are asking that how come that GUTA, they are importing and selling? Some of them are just as big as members of your association. But as for them, you think GUTA people, they don't like profit? But it's only your members who are saying that as for us. And who are their members? You see the big...
No,
these big
you know very well that some at the time that even the LY Kufuor government gave them the 3%, some people graduated to the 70.5%, and I can mention
and those people,
I can mention the companies that I can mention them to you.
I agree. I don't disagree with you, but
the fact of the matter is that your government.
So the long and short of it is that look, the NPP administration, we are business friendly.
Which I do agree, but I disagree with you.
We are business friendly. We have thought through this. You see, you go to the United States, it's a very business friendly country. But you are not allowed to evade tax. You miss your tax payment even by a day, and you get a letter with the penalties. The fact that a government wants to be sure that taxes are properly collected, that the government can have enough resources to maintain a stable macroeconomic environment in which the cedi will not drop to hurt your businesses, that businesses would have a stable economic environment to operate in. The taxes due government must be collected so that we can keep the macroeconomy stable.
At the time of 70.5%, government were not collecting the money.
Never.
Is that why you're trying to tell the whole Ghana that?
You're pretending to be asleep.
Wake up. I'm telling you, you're not before. Why did you bring me here? What's my business of being here?
Samson.
You have a lot of other time to the honorable minister and you left me out.
Listen.
No, this is unfair.
No, I think you're being unfair and you're being very
No,
unruly.
I'm not being...
You're being very unruly.
No, I'm not being very unruly. This is unfair.
What if, like, a big manufacturer has already bought in goods and has already paid the 17.5, and now we are changing over to the 3%? What then happens to the already 3.5 that they paid?
No, since it doesn't make any difference at all because they bought it at 17.5%, and those goods are there. They are now going to sell. In the past, they would have had to slap 17.5 and subtract at output. Now, the goods are still there. They are now going to sell. Government is no more requiring them to charge 17.5% and offset. Okay. They are going to do the 3%.
So that's where the problem comes in.
And when they do the 3%, the margin on it between 17.5% and 3%, I've never heard Samson or his friends saying that, okay, that difference we are bringing to government. That one they want to keep. And then they turn around and say that I have nowhere to subtract my input VAT from. Look, this policy, I think it is a good one. I'm sure, and I appeal to consumers again. Look, if this country, this thing about big retailers manipulating the input-output VAT
You are a minister.
has been.
Honorable minister.
I'm coming. Let me
This
finish.
statement you are making.
Oh,
please.
Look,
This
I
statement,
have
I'm
told
not
you
comfortable
that.
with this statement
I know.
that you are making in the
Please,
public.
please.
Because look.
Look, let me
somebody
finish.
collect
You
the
let me.
tax-
Let me.
Someone
you-
collect tax on behalf of government. Those people sitting in your offices there, what have you done to them?
Oh, but
think
haven't
that
you heard that 19 custom officers have been interdicted?
Probably-
a lot more is coming. So you take your time. But the offenders are not just the customs and the revenue officers who connive with taxpayers to do the wrong thing. The target is also those business people who have made it their business to always be in league with government and revenue officers to deny the ordinary Ghanaian of their due. And then when this country things go down, we want to pretend that somehow it is not our fault. What I'll conclude quickly, my conclusion, then he can come in, is that please, we have thought through this policy, and I speak to the consuming public. It is not every retailer that says their prices will go up.
Yeah, right.
Please, if you go to one shop and they say because of some 3% VAT, we are going to increase our prices, try and check from other retailers. You may well get it lower because some of them have decided that they don't have to increase their prices. If the bad guys realize that Ghanaians are now awake, your government is now awake, we will tackle many of these leakages in the economy. I'm sure people will begin to realize that the time is up, they must now fall in line. Let us never fall. Let us never fall for this. Please.
What's my brother's name? The Bulisa MP at Clementa Park. He did all these things. It couldn't work. The point is that, look, if tax should be collected, it's collected at the port. If there's a wrong thing, let's correct it at the port. If tax should be collected, it's collected at the end of the month. If they are filing and they've seen anything, they can write nicely to the company. Come and tell us, this is, we have seen certain different figures. It is a simple
reform in tax administration is also important
to the business community, and I'm telling you, some of them are international business community.
So those ones who are saying they are not affected, they don't profit.
Our president to travel out for a country to not ask them what is happening in your country. We as people who speaks for this corporation,
you go to Britain, flood rate is far more comprehensive than you have here. Which country? We will govern Ghana the way we think would help us develop.
I'm telling you that he made in his opening remarks, he mentioned that those who don't have the capacity, for the accounting people having the capacity to do the input and output for government to collect their taxes. That is the reason, that's the excellence, and that is the good people.
And to plug loopholes.
No. Is it the reason why you brought this 3%?
It's part of it.
In both his manifesto and the law they've just passed. If you speak to higher,
the law says wholesalers and retailers.
They are not happy with how this is going to happen. And I think that manufacturers are not happy. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you are very busy.
I'm sure they'll get.
Manufacturers are not happy.
As the policy takes off. As the policy takes off.
All too soon. That's what time will allow us. The conversation will carry on. But as usual, we'll always be back to do this all over again. I want to say thank you very much to Samson. Thank you very much to Kweku. But I hope that somewhere in the middle, you got a gist of VAT 101. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back to do this all over again.